Hello friends, and welcome to a new video. So over the last few months, we've been doing the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. I have the bingo board right here, and today we're going to be doing a video specifically focused on one of these prompts. So if you can have seen it, recently we've been alternating between videos where we are 100% focusing on a square and videos where we're relying on the jar to pick out prompts. So today we're devoted to one of the squares, and we're going to be doing reading a book for every year of the last 10 years. So basically we are picking a book from 2015 onwards and one per year. I think right now, at least, my intent is to go into this and kind of read a few authors who I really like and just really explore their backlist. I did find a few who, I think all of these are on Kindle Unlimited, but a few authors who primarily write romance, and I've enjoyed what I've read from them and have really wanted to just dive into some of their other works. So that is going to kind of be how we're focusing it today, and I think that is going to go fantastic because I really want to read more from authors that I'm enjoying, if that makes sense. And yeah, super excited. We're gonna go year by year. We're gonna go chronologically, starting at 2015, coming up to, actually, no, it's 2026. I guess we're starting at 2016 and going up to 2026. That makes more sense. So we're gonna go dive in. I'm gonna pick what I'm gonna read and I'll come back and let you guys know. The year 2016. I think it was in my last or second to last year of university, and was just a disaster of a human. I would have been 21, 22 around then. Oof, I was a little baby who was a disaster. But the book that we decided to read for the 2016 year is called Unmentionable, and this was so incredibly fun. It is basically this, the premise. You wake up in the Victorian era, and let's take a deep dive on why you should not romanticize living in this time period as much as popular culture does, why you don't actually want to live in a period movie, and why the Victorian era is in fact not the best time for people, women, and just life in general. It was honestly just super fun. The writing was very tongue-in-cheek and was just kind of silly, which was fun, which was great. It was honestly really great. And then we also just delved into a lot of the, let's say, parts of history that are perhaps more glossed over. And a lot of it in particular is what life was really like for a woman in the Victorian era. You have a period, here's what you're gonna do. You have to go to the bathroom, here's the harsh reality. You're gonna be married? Let's talk about what that's really gonna be like for you. Just very fun overall. I think that anybody who happens to wish they were born in a different time period, this is a great one to perhaps open your eyes. I'm gonna give it 3 stars. I really don't have too much to say about this one either. Like, this is gonna be a very quick chat because, yeah, there's not much else to bring up. It was overall fun, nothing too serious, nothing that crazy. Just a fun time, I guess. I weirdly found it intensely hard to find a book from 2017, but we ended with Things We Lost in the Fire by Mariana Enriquez. Have I read a book by them before? I feel like it. Yeah, A Sunny Place for Shady People. Okay, interesting, because Things We Lost in the Fire is actually a short story collection, and Sunny Place for Shady People also was. Interesting. So we're gonna read the synopsis of this one. It is wildly imaginative, devilishly daring tales of the macabre, brings contemporary Argentina to vibrant life as a place where shocking inequality, violence, and corruption are the law of the land, while military dictatorship and legions of desperados loom large from the collective memory. So it is kind of just a collection of slightly disturbing short stories, and so far all of them are very within normal world, just dark, deep, gross things that happen in reality. It does seem from a few other things within this description that it might delve more into horror, magic realism, gothic tales. So I'm interested to see where this goes. And I've so far read 3 of about, I don't know, 10, 15 stories, and I am having slightly mixed feelings. So the first story I did find it, I guess I didn't expect it to go that dark that quick, but it went very, very deeply dark very instantly and delved into a story of a potential missing child, and got really intense and emotional, and oof, it just really shocked me. So that one has been kind of like the standout story for me. And then we've had 2 others since then that again do deal with violence and darker aspects of life. But those ones, they haven't hit quite as much. And I wonder if it's just that shock of the first one that kind of really gripped me. The second 2 have also been a little bit shorter, and sometimes I do find that slightly longer things make a bit more punch for, like, make a bit more of a punch for me. So I don't know. It is going to be interesting to continue on in these. I'm just going to kind of take notes as I go, and probably maybe do an update every few stories or when I'm done. I don't know yet. But so far I'm enjoying it. It's, yeah, definitely one of the only ones that I found like was grabbing my interest when I was looking through books that came out in 2017. Weirdly seemed like a year that either I've read all of the things I was interested in or wasn't a good year for publishing. Who knows? But yeah, we're going on in this, and I don't think it should take too long. It's only 200 pages for the entire collection, and it honestly just depends how I want to pace myself. I could either get done this tonight or maybe potentially take a few days. We'll see how I feel. So I finished reading Things We Lost in the Fire, and the same theme kind of really kept up over across this book. Of each story was incredibly depressing, bleak, and then got really fucked up at one point and a little disturbing. My favorite stories were Dirty Boy, Adela's House, The Neighbor's Courtyard, and Green, Red, Orange. Those all kind of left me a little reeling and a little uncomfortable with it. They just definitely hit me a little bit more than the others. So yeah, kind of fucked up. I guess I didn't really think that this was horror, but I would definitely classify it as sad. And yeah, I'm gonna give this overall 4 stars. Just a very fucked up short story collection. Definitely preferred this to the other one I read from this author, which was A Sunny Place for Shitty People. That one, it had like, I'd say 2 or 3 stories I liked, but the rest were pretty meh for me. This one, I think that the majority of the stories were solid, and there was just like a few really standout ones. So with that, we finished the 2017 book, and now on to the next year. Okay, time for our 2018 book. And this is one where I'm kind of getting into my backlist authors I want to read. I have been really changing up my TBR as I go, even looking at the books I want to go forward. I keep changing things. But today, right now, we have an author that I've wanted to explore significantly amount more from, and that is Isla Madden Mills. And I have read 2 of her football romance books, which I think it's mostly what she does, and I gave them both 5 stars. So I really want to explore more of her works and see if there's more that I like. This one is, unfortunately though for me, because I don't love these, a college romance, and it is a secret admirer college romance. So we have this one female main character. She's kind of I don't want to say an outcast, but she's a quirky, nerdy, weird girl. And on one of her first nights at this school, she shares a kiss with one of the football stars. And it's at this bonfire where rumor is, or legend says, that your first kiss at this bonfire will be the person you can never get out of your mind. So that happens, and then a few years later we follow them again, and she starts to receive these mysterious texts of oh, hey, you're my dream girl, all this stuff. Obviously it's him, but she doesn't know that yet. And yeah, just gonna be a romance between them. It's like setting off okay, but I will say very much at the same time, I'm not necessarily excited by it so far. Like I think it does have the potential to be interesting or good. I'm just not quite there yet, unfortunately. So maybe it'll end up being a winner for me. I can really hope so. Just so far, I'm feeling a little iffy about it. And I think it's just, I don't like college romances. This one feels like it's lacking a little. I feel like the characters are a little juvenile, which to be fair, they are in their 20s. There's that. But yeah, it's not quite living up to what I hoped it would be yet. I have finished reading I Dare You, and I can't help but feel disappointed in this one. It felt very surface level, and which is a little interesting to say because I do feel like our characters actually dealt with some things in this book, and there's actually like slightly more difficult topics talked about. But yeah, I don't know. I just didn't enjoy it that much. It was maybe too fast-paced, perhaps, and I don't feel like we had like quite enough relationship building in that way. It felt like very much they stayed at basically the same note they were throughout their entire relationship, even with third act breakup, even with everything, like all this drama that happened. The relationship did feel pretty one note. There was just like so many things also that happened that felt like they were majorly skipped over. A lot of things that I think could have been really interesting to see, and maybe like this is one of those rare cases where I feel like this book could have benefited. I'm not even going to say 100 pages. I think 200 pages could have like really helped this book and make me feel like an actual emotional connection and feel like it had decent depth to it, because it just felt like a very casual, not very serious book. Yeah, I mean, it was okay. It was okay. Didn't make me feel very happy about this author, I guess. Or it didn't necessarily make me feel super excited to continue reading her backlist, but also could be more of I don't like college romances, because I think that I have maybe phased out at that point in my life. Yeah, I'm just not into college romances as much as I used to be. So maybe I need to take a little break from picking them up because they really have not been working for me lately. But yeah, we're done with that one. On to the next.
When my days end, I must just fall in love. I know the DJ.
2019 book time. So I ended up going with The Most Fun We Ever Have by Claire Lombardo. So this is described as a multi-generational novel in which the four adult daughters of a Chicago couple, still madly in love after 40 years, recklessly ignite old rivalries until a long-buried secret threatens to shatter the lives they've built. So as a little preface before I dive too much into this, I will say I started reading this probably about 3 months ago, put it down because my hold lapsed, and then ended up picking it back up because it just recently came in through Libby. Lo and behold, fits perfectly for this prompt. At the time that I was reading it, I got about 30% in, and I would have told you that this was going to be a 5-star book. Now, a few months removed, I'm feeling a little differently about it. But essentially, like that quick synopsis said, this is just a this is essentially just a family drama. So we're having alternating chapters between present day, where we're following these 4 adult women, all sisters, and all of the honestly insane things that are going on in their lives, all of the secrets they've woven, and all of these major things that are changing in their day-to-day life. And then we also have chapters that take place in the past, following the parents as they meet, fall in love, and eventually get married, and life kind of derails when they end up having children a little bit earlier than anticipated. So that the first 30% that I read, I have to say, was so incredibly addicting to me, and I was 100% in on this family drama. It is wild. There is so much backstabbing. These people are just doing so many things, and all of them are like, I want to make, it's not like dramatic, like too dramatic. There's major things that happen. There's like secrets that are buried. There's people who have died. There's things that have like really, really drastically impacted. Go on, buddy. There are things that have really, really drastically impacted this family, but not in the like Bravo reality TV way, just more of quiet resentments and people doing things to each other that are a little like cut deep, like cut quite deep, and are a little cruel. And it's just really fascinating to see so much of what's happening and these sisters in their relationship with each other, and then also seeing how they started to get to where they are, like seeing them, because we see them grow as children up until the end of their, well, not the end of their lives, basically till their 40s for some of them. And yeah, I'm also done. I mean, did I say that? I don't know. I finished it already. And I think that the entire time I was reading this book, I kept constantly switching between like that 100% enthralled and then just being deeply bored, because it felt like so many of these characters were just making terrible choices after terrible choices. And a lot of them were, quite frankly, insufferable and terrible people. But at the same time, then things would happen that would draw you in, or you would see like a bit of humanity, and it would just really incredibly fascinate you. I'm also like, I'm not really diving into the plot here because I don't know how many of these things are a secret. I don't know. I don't think there's a lot that's talked about in it. So one sister, was widowed young, soothes herself with booze and younger men. There's a litigator turned stay-at-home mom, battles anxiety and self-doubt when the darkest part of her past resurfaces. Liza is a neurotic and newly tenured professor, finds herself pregnant with a baby she's not sure she wants, and by a man she's not sure she loves. And Grace, the dawdling youngest daughter, begins living a lie that no one in her family even suspects. So all of them were kind of just making terrible decisions, doing slightly shitty things, and kind of, you know, treating each other badly. And again, like, I'm not 100% sure how I feel about this book. I think I'm kind of just having a rambling moment right now where I'm trying to come to my thoughts. I think the book might have been too long. It was about 500 pages, so it did end up probably dragging a bit more at points. And then there were points that, again, that I really, really enjoyed it. So I'm not sure fully how I felt. I'm not sure if this is a 3-star or 4-star. At one point, I thought for sure it was going to be a 5-star. Yeah, I'm very much drawing a blank when trying to like accurately summarize this. Basically, let's say I did enjoy this a considerable amount, and parts of it were very engrossing. And now, yeah, we've read our 2019 book. I feel like this has been a terrible review, and I don't know what to say, but here we are, done. And now I need to go find a book from 2020, which, what a wonderful, fun time that was. What a wonderful, fun time to throw back to that memory. All right, we have a book finish for the 2020 year. Eventually I'll come in and, you know, update things as I'm reading them, but that is not today. And also because this is an 80-page little novella, and it was fantastic. So I read The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nevo, and it's very, very short, but it's just like a little tale, a little fable, almost you could say, told by this woman named Rabbit to a cleric. And it is telling the story of this Empress of Salt and Fortune who recently passed away, and her estate is kind of open. This cleric is coming in because they want to record as much of their history as possible to be able to then bring back to, you know, their headquarters. And Rabbit is telling the story of when she was the handmaiden to this empress, as she was like a new bride to the emperor, gave birth to the crown prince, and then was exiled. And it is a story that, I will say, this is my second time reading it. I did not like click into it the first time. I did not like understand the nuances. I did not pay enough attention. But it's a story of very much this empress in exile and these slow, quiet things, like what presumably looks like a very quiet life, that is basically setting up the keys to a rebellion that she later took place in, and the downfall of this emperor that she basically was involved with. It was like just a really, really great little story about just the resilience of this one empress and all of these things that she did, all of this incredible journey that she went on, and basically how she took this exile, didn't let it break her down, and became an incredibly powerful, incredibly well-known and well-revered woman in history. So in a way, this is also like the secret story that the general history of the world doesn't know. So the little secrets and the little ways that this larger revolution that is known within the world, we're just telling like the little secrets of how it actually came to be. It was wonderful. Really, really liked it. Giving this 4 stars, which again, like very rare for me to rate a very short book this incredibly highly, but I love this. It was really fantastic. And it's kind of crazy. I thought this was out for so much longer. Because I do believe it's part of a series called the Singing Hills Cycle series, and there's 7 books out right now. That's wild. I'm very, very tempted. I'm very tempted to read all of them, because I think it is just this cleric going around and learning like the secret history of certain things that happened within this world, and I think I'm very interested to read all of them. So this was a major win. We now have our 2021 book to go, and yeah, we're doing great. We're doing great. We're making lots of progress. We're onto our 2020 book, and that means, I guess, we're either halfway done once we finish this one, or we're currently halfway done. One of the two. But like either way, we are making nice progress, and I do want to get this video done as soon as possible and get it up. So we're going to be doing quite a bit of reading over the next few days, and it's going to be great. So 2020, I am picking the Dictionary of Lost Words. I can't remember why I decided to pick this one, but I think it was on a list of something that caught my eye. So here is the synopsis. In 1901, the word bondmaid was discovered missing from the Oxford English Dictionary. This is the story of the girl who stole it. Esme is born into a world of words. She spends her childhood in the scriptorium, a garden shed in Oxford, where her father and a team of dedicated lexicographers are collecting words for the very first Oxford English Dictionary. Her place is beneath the sorting table, unseen and unheard. One day, a slip of paper containing the word bondmaid flutters to the floor. Esme rescues the slip and stashes it in an old wooden case that belongs to her friend Lizzie, a young servant in the big house. She begins to collect other words from the scriptorium that are misplaced, discarded, or have been neglected by the dictionary men. They help her make a sense of the world. Over time, Esme realizes that some words are considered more important than others, and that the words and meanings related to women's experiences often go unrecorded. While she dedicates her life to the Oxford English Dictionary, secretly she begins to collect words for another dictionary, the Dictionary of Lost Words. Set when the women's suffragette movement was at its height and the Great War loomed, the Dictionary of Lost Words reveals a lost narrative hidden between the lines of history written by men. So basically, we're starting when our main character is a very, very young child. She is in this world with her father, learning about words and really learning about this dictionary process, which basically is people around the world send in words, and then the men, the lexicographers, they decide whether or not it is important to be included in the dictionary, and they come up with a basically, the definition that properly describes it. So Esme just is learning about this world and learning about how also things are kind of different for women than men. I want to like this one. I want to like it. I'm finding it very boring so far. It is really just, so far, not a lot has happened. It's mostly just Esme kind of going through the same process of finding words, asking what they mean, and then just kind of, continuing on in her studies. And I guess a bit too kind of seeing how different the world can be for women versus men, what it's like for servants, what it's like for what the differences are for her as a wealthy child versus her servants. And yeah, that's kind of it so far. I guess at some point she's going to have a feminist movement and have a realization about all of these women's specific words. Yeah, I'm just finding it boring so far. I hope I like it, because I think that this could be a really good feminist historical fiction. It could really get into some interesting topics about the origin of words, which I love. I love learning certain things. It kind of reminds me of the book Word Slut. I think it's by Amanda Montell, where it really kind of dives into the origin of some of these like dirty words and swear words and just some really, really interesting things. So this kind of goes down a similar vein and like teaches us a bit about maybe the meaning behind certain words and perhaps why they are very specific to women. I could like it. So I'm going to continue on in that one and then I'll come back when I'm done. All right, so it is a little bit later and I did finish reading the Dictionary of Lost Words. I really did want to like this. I think that I started off kind of the beginning of it. I really felt positive and I really was hoping we would get a lot more into maybe the history of words, the more learning about how dictionaries are created. Like, you know, just, I guess we did in some ways, but I found that the book ended up veering away from that and really just getting into the life of our main character and everything she went through, which to be fair was a lot. And she had like some pretty terrible things happen to her. But at the same time, I just didn't find that as interesting. And it wasn't really something that I was invested in the story for. I also just, God, I don't think I like the writing either. It felt a little bit more impersonal than I kind of wanted. And especially when we were dealing with like, there were some major topics and some bad things that happened to our main character. It just felt a little detached. And yeah, I just couldn't really like get 100% invested for that. This might be harsh, but I'm giving it a 2-star. I just really like, I'm not coming out of it feeling super positive. I'm not coming out feeling like this was anything for me. Yeah, I just didn't like it. But yeah, we're done. At least we have the 2020 book done. So we're at least, yeah, we're halfway done now. So we are making good progress on this video. So I think it's safe to say I'm very much in my horror era and all I want to do is read like very weird horror books. I do have a plan later on this summer. We're going to be doing like significantly more horror books and we're going to be trying to complete the horror bingo that was created by Sarah from Wicked Reading. That will be coming. I just like don't have the brain space or time for it at the moment. But all of this to say, we are reading a slightly horror book. I don't actually know that much about it aside from I've heard it's very weird. So our book for the year 2020 is Patricia Wants to Cuddle, and this cover immediately grips me. I have no idea what's going on. Is there some weird monkey person? Maybe. I also don't know where the scary aspects come into this. I don't really want to know. I want to go into this knowing as little as possible. It's also very short, which is nice. But basically what's happening is we are currently following the contestants on a basically bachelor type show as they are on, I think we're down to our final 3 or 4 contestants. And at this point they have some kind of vacation with the male lead and they end up going to this super remote weird island that is a little creepy. And there's been like news reports in the past that people have gone missing here. We don't really know too much about it, but my immediate first vibes is maybe there's some kind of cult on the island that murders people, some kind of monster. There's something that is maybe murdering tourists, and something's definitely going to happen to these cast members and crew of the show. It's I'm enjoying the writing so far too. It's very much like all of the people on the show are terrible people. They're horrible. All of them have secrets. We're following like their deepest things. All of them are really just there. Like they don't care about the male lead, like the bachelor. They're really just there to boost their own careers or for something. And they're really just not there for love. So it's kind of fun to see that. Nothing really exciting has happened so far. We're really just following our people as they're traveling. There was this one moment when they got to the island, they're driving and the driver basically like veers off the road because he thinks he saw like a naked person, a big naked hairy person walking down the road. So like maybe Bigfoot, maybe that's what is on the, like maybe it's a Bigfoot haunting kind of thing. Yeah, I don't really know where it's going, but I am interested for sure and definitely excited to get going. I don't know where it's gonna go, but that's what we're on right now. So Patricia Wants to Cuddle, 3 stars for me. This is maybe a bit of a spoiler, so skip to the next section if you don't want to hear. But this ended up going down more of the slasher route, which is really not for me. I like more psychological horror or just weird. And while this was weird, it was very slashery, very bloody, very gory, that's not really my thing. And also I do feel it took quite a while for us to get to this like horrifying section. And after that, it did get more interesting, but the lead up to it was definitely, while I was curious about what was happening, I wasn't like 100% invested. And I did find that some of that just dragged on a little bit. Like it was just kind of boring and then very, very action packed for a little bit. And then the book was done because again, this was also a very short book. It was like 230 pages, something like that. All the characters were extremely unlikable, which is fine, We're following like bachelor contestants. That's kind of to be expected. Most of them were just more concerned about like their Instagram follower count than anything else. That part, totally fine. I don't mind unlikable characters. It sometimes can really add something interesting to the story, which I do think it was here. It just kind of got to a point when it got a little tiring to just constantly hear the same comments from them. And I felt like there was supposed to be all of these jokes and none of them were really landing either. So there's just a lot of things that like it didn't quite click for me. Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is like I don't like slashers. I really don't. I cannot watch them on TV. I don't like reading about them. I don't want them in my life. And as soon as something kind of veers in that territory, I like mentally check out a little bit. So overall, I'll just say this had an interesting premise. I was definitely here for the premise of it all. It just didn't end up going down a route that I liked. 3 stars because it was decent. I do think it was entertaining. I would recommend this for people because I think it was fun, but just not the book for me. All right, next book we've chosen is The Last 10 Years, or maybe Next Time. I can't remember who recommended this, but it was very, very recently in a recommended video, and immediately I was like, okay, I want to listen to that because it's sci-fi-esque. And to be fair, I did not listen to a single other thing in that recommendation other than, ooh, sci-fi-esque romance, let's go. But basically in this one, we are following a couple who they've been married for like 20 years, 15, 20 years. And they've kind of lost the spark. So they're at this point in their life where they are both just so insanely busy, barely have time for each other. Just everything else is a different priority instead of their relationship. Their kids kind of take over their lives, their careers. They just like really are kind of like not connecting. They get in a big fight and then the husband goes to take their dog for a walk, ends up getting hit by a car and dies. But next morning we wake up again from the wife's perspective next morning and she relives the same day over again. And it is kind of a Groundhog Day inspired type of thing where she is just repeatedly reliving this day over and over again. Every single day, no matter what she does, ends with her husband dying. And she is just trying to find her way through this. So that's 100% where we are right now. It is a Groundhog Day inspired moment. And while I like this premise in general, I do find it tends to get a little boring at certain points. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, is idea is okay, but there's always a point in the book where it tends to drag. And there's always also points where I find it doesn't like connect, or there's just something that gets a little repetitive, and it just, you have to have something kind of interesting to really like mix things up. And I don't know if this one's going to. I like the general idea. I also like, I wish I'd kind of looked at the premise to have a better sense of what it is. In my mind, I think it was like parallel universes. That's not at all what it is, but I'm gonna finish it. It's a very quick read. I'm just like a little disappointed in what it's actually about, and also finding it's dragging a little bit because of just this repetitiveness of it. But we're gonna keep going. Okay, so I finished Maybe Next Time, and I don't know if I mentioned it, but this is our book for 2023, and we're just like flying through these at this point. We are getting so close to being done. In this book, I don't know, like I started off really liking the idea of it, even though this is a premise that I find tends to get repetitive. I'm okay with that for the most part. That usually doesn't bother me. But it just kind of got to a point where it felt too repetitive. Like it felt like we were really, really just following the same thing over and over, which I know is the point of the story, but it gets to that point where you just like really feel like it's dragging. And I think it's also, I watched a movie pretty recently with this idea of like repeating the same day over and over again, which was, it's Andy Samberg. I think it's called Palm Springs, and I really like that movie. So I think that maybe is in my head too, of I'm comparing this perhaps unfairly against that. That was more of a comedy and really fun. This one, it's supposed to be a bit more melodramatic and just really following this woman's like trauma after seeing her husband die repeatedly and her like not really dealing well with being stuck in a time loop. And this is probably one of those rare cases too, where I think a book was too long, and it was not long. It was really not long, but I think it could have been cut down because it did start to feel too repetitive, and just the drama. It was too much. It was too ridiculous for me. But yeah, I didn't really like this one that much. I wanted to for sure, but it just, yeah, I couldn't get into it. I also hated the ending of this one. I'm not going to spoil it, but I hated how it ended, and it just left off on a very ambiguous ending, which is fine. That doesn't matter. But just, I think like I couldn't have cared less which way it went, and that maybe is part of the issue, is like it could have gone in one of two directions, and I felt nothing for these characters. Also didn't like our main character either. I think she was like a little self-absorbed, and just really like the way that she handled being stuck in this time loop was just annoying to watch. So yeah, it didn't really do it for me. I can't remember who recommended this one, but somebody said it was like a sci-fi-esque type book, and it was not that. It was definitely more like mildly maybe magical realism, maybe mildly fantastical, but yeah, not really it. But we're done that one. I feel like the books in this video are just kind of like all over the place on what I'm feeling with them, but oh well. For our next book, I read A Tongue So Sweet and Deadly, which I've been hearing decent things about, and I'm always, literally always, if there's a romantasy book with the slightest, tiniest bit of hype, I will pick it up. And this one started off promising. We had this half-fae woman. She was living in a village. We learned that she had been sent there by the king, basically with an agreement from him that at any point he might call upon her to like return this favor. And he does pretty early on in the book, and basically he tells her that he wants her to run for governor of this area, and because it seems like there's a plot against the king, he wants her to run and like get really involved in the politics and find out all these secrets. And I do have to say that premise sounded fantastic. It sounded so interesting, and I was so incredibly into this beginning part. Like truly that sounded so fun for me. But then the book kind of fell apart a little bit in my mind. Not really, but I just found it just didn't actually end up going anywhere interesting, and it really just felt like it dragged like crazy for me, because I just could not care about really much else that was happening beyond that. And I don't think like the characters were well fleshed out. I don't think the plot was really fleshed out beyond that like initial idea. And there was a love story that like I felt nothing about. It really did not feel like there was much chemistry there, or again like anything ironed out to kind of show me why we should be rooting for this relationship. And yeah, it was a quick read. I don't know if it was I think that could be because it wasn't particularly well written, but it was quick at least. And yeah, I'm giving that one 3 stars. So we only have 2 more books to go. So for our 2025 release, I decided to continue on in a romance series I've been really enjoying. So we're reading Duke by Jessica Peterson, and this is book, I think 4 in a cowboy romance series I've been reading. We're basically just following these cowboy brothers who live on a ranch, and each one of them has their own relationship. I've really enjoyed the first 3 books. All of them had different tropes. There was like enemies to lovers, friends to lovers, one night stand to lovers, things like that. And I really enjoyed all of them. really making me get into the sexy cowboy vibe. And I will say that I enjoyed those ones. This one, it is starting off on a trope that I deeply dislike. And I guess it doesn't really come into play until like 30-ish% in, so I won't say too much about what that trope is, but it is something I don't like. And in this book, we have a city girl whose best friend now lives on this ranch, and she is there pretty often because they run a business together. And Sexy Cowboy Duke has always been into her and also has been kind of helping out with this business and bringing in a bit of a cowboy's perspective. And their banter is fine. I don't mind that. I actually really like that he is like falling head over heels, obsessed with this woman. I like seeing that. I like seeing that quite a bit. But this one trope is starting to happen, and it is just something that every time it happens, I get so uninterested in a book and immediately get drawn out so quickly. And I do think that is going to kind of ruin the rest of the book for me, unfortunately. Like, there's things I'm enjoying. I think the banter's good. I think the spice is decent, maybe not the best I've read in this series, but I'm feeling a little apprehensive, I will say that. Hoping it turns around, but I do have a feeling, just because of this one trope, I feel like I know exactly where it's gonna go. So we'll see. So I finished reading Duke, and it was pretty decent. Like, okay, can you stop? It was decent. It was like a steamy cowboy romance. You know, sometimes that's really all you need in life. Sometimes just all you need in life is like a steamy romance with no real thoughts in it. And I feel like that was kind of how I was feeling about this one. I was not emotionally invested. I did not really care too much about the characters. Didn't jive necessarily with the plot. But if I was just kind of thinking about it as a fun, jolly time, I was really into it. So it's like a 3-star for me. I think this is my lowest rated in the series, and it is 100% just because I didn't really get along with the trope, the main reason why these two characters ended up deciding to be a couple. And it is just something in a book that I never really get into. I tend to avoid books that typically have this, and I mostly just read this one because, I mean, to be fair, I did not know going into it that this was what was going to happen. But also, I've genuinely enjoyed all the other books in the series quite a bit. So it felt very, natural to want to continue on. So writing's good. It was just a story that wasn't really for me. And it really made me, it really stopped me from getting emotionally invested in a lot of what was happening. And I was kind of just held at arm's length in some ways because of that. So 3 stars overall. Again, I really like this series. I like this world. I like these cowboys. I like all of that. Summers for me tend to be full of cowboy romances. This is like the time of year that I just want to read a silly good time kind of book and not worry about anything else. So there's that. We're done. We only have one more book to read. So I need to find something that came out this year, buddy. So I need to find something that was released this year that I am not reading for something else, and then we will be able to finish this off. Okay, for our last book, I decided to pick up a new release from Catriona Ward, who I've consistently been reading all of their releases the last few years, but I feel like none of their books have actually hit me the same way The Last House on Needless Street did. Like, that is one that 100% like blew my mind, was one of my favorite like horror books that I've ever read. And all of the other ones that they've written have just kind of consistently been letting me down. But I'm going into this one hopeful. I also think this is an author I'm going to pick up everything they write. So I'm just gonna keep going. But we're starting off in this one. We have siblings. They live in this like abusive household with a cousin figure after their parents died, and they end up escaping and heading out into the woods to find this like cult that they know of called Nowhere. And it's kind of rumored that a lot of kids, when they run away, they go there. And we're kind of just starting off by seeing their journey there. And then we're also following a few perspectives. I think there's some journalists who are investigating this. I think there's a parent whose child has been part of this cult, and then a few of the cult members. So we're following like a ton of different perspectives, looking at this place called Nowhere. It feels a little too soon to have a very definitive feeling on this book, but I'll say I'm curious. I'm very curious. I like culty books, so I hope it kind of gets into that. I hope it gets a little weird and a little creepy. I would like that as well. But I'm feeling hopeful going into this one that we will like it. Alrighty, we are done Nowhere Burning. So we are done the final book for this video. I don't know, I'm disappointed in this one. And I think I just keep reading Catriona Ward and hoping that I'm gonna have something different. Hoping that I'm gonna come out with like a revolutionary read that is going to like blow my mind away the same way that The Last House on Needless Street did. And I keep getting disappointed time and time again. So this one, it was relatively short. It was only about 220-ish pages. And that ended up, I don't know, I feel like it was to the detriment of this book because we are following, I think it's 4 different stories, like 4 different characters that are kind of loosely involved. All of them kind of are featuring this cult that called Nowhere that our main character, like that is kind of notorious in this area. And while all of them kind of centered on that, I do feel like they were a little bit too loosely connected, perhaps, and they didn't really feel like any of them properly got fleshed out or properly did enough to like really intrigue me. I did enjoy this, like okay, but at the same time, I'm not really coming out feeling anything that spectacular about it. I don't feel like it did anything like mind-bendy, which is what I was hoping for. Didn't really do anything that like, again, like no twists, or at least nothing that I found like that exciting, and nothing really that I'm coming out like, wow, I feel incredible about this book. Overall, it was just kind of bland, unfortunately, and I really don't feel like I gained anything by reading this. So that is a little bit of a disappointment for me. But yeah, we're now done all of the books, reading books for the last 10 years. And this was fun. It was definitely a good excuse to explore the backlist of a few authors, explore quite a few books that are on my TBR that I've been wanting to pick up for some time. And yeah, because of that, it was just truly a fantastic excuse to grab so many books. So I'm never going to complain about that, about having the opportunity to read more things and things that perhaps I would not have made time to read. This was an interesting video. I kind of wish I had stuck to one genre and then could actually like discuss what has changed in said genre throughout the years. I think that at some point I will have to do that, like say reading fantasy throughout the last 10 years, seeing what major trends have changed. Definitely want to do that. And actually, now that I'm talking about it, I think that could even be an interesting video series. But overall, this was fun. We're just going to end off the video here. We're done. Another HRCYED prompt. That always makes me so happy. And I would love if you guys would consider subscribing if you haven't already. We'll be having tons more videos up very, very soon for you to check out. And thank you for watching today. I'll see you in a video soon. Bye.